Secretary Geithner, I appreciate your appearing before the committee today and hope that we can reach some measure of agreement on the plain facts regarding the President's budget proposal. This is about the President's budget proposal and how it affects our future, and the taxes under it are to go up, and in one sense it's just a question of how much would be taken from the American people and sent to the government in Washington. That's what the tax debate is fundamentally about. You are a capable and respected, loyal member of the administration, but more fundamentally, you're a servant of the American people. You have an opportunity today to help us understand both the dangerous unsustainability of our fiscal path, as the chairman has said, and you have warned us about previously, and the depth of change needed to right our course. It will be hard, but I'm totally confident it's doable if we begin to take action today. And we don't have to make dramatic changes in spending this year, but we need to have a clear, firm, relentless course to alter our debt path. On Tuesday, the acting budget director ordered offered some of the most misleading testimony I've heard in my time in the Senate. Should America suffer a debt crisis as a result of our recklessness, Mr. Geithner's testimony would provide future generations with a useful illustration of how America failed to prevent what has been described to us by the Debt Commission as the most predictable economic crisis in our history. In the words of Michael Tanner from the Cato Institute, President Obama's latest budget proposal should be hailed as the Da Vinci of fiscal obfuscation. Well, Federal Reserve Chairman Bernanke testified before this committee last week. He was explicit about the danger ahead, quote, having a large and increasing level of government debt relative to national income runs the risk of serious economic consequences. Over the longer term, the current trajectory of federal debt threatens to crowd out private capital formation and thus reduce productivity growth. To the extent that increasing debt is financed by borrowing from abroad, a growing share of our future income would be devoted to payments on foreign debt. High levels of debt also impair the ability of policymakers to respond effectively to the future economic shocks and other adverse events, close quote. And those were his words last week. In your own testimony before the Senate Finance Committee yesterday, you seemed to suggest that the President's budget achieves fiscal sustainability. At the time Chairman Bernanke issued these warnings last week before the budget, our nation's gross debt was projected to reach $26 trillion. This week, the President's budget did not change that number or our course. It did not. The gross public debt had already risen above 100% of GDP during this President's term, the highest since World War II, and will remain above 100% of GDP every year under this budget. Chairman Conrad, I know, believes, as I do, that debt to GDP is an important metric. We could have, well, I won't call that chart up today, but we are in the danger zone of debt to GDP. There's just no doubt about it, and this budget does not call for us to get out of it. Thus, it's clear the President's budget proposal has made no improvements to the long-term fiscal outlook of America as it relates to the agreement we reached last year. It did not reduce deficits by $4 trillion over current law. Debt, spending, and taxes all increased dramatically. So you'll forgive me if I don't see sustainability here. During Chairman Bernanke's recent appearance, I recall comments that he and you and other officials made at the Federal Reserve meetings in the run-up to our last fiscal crisis. At that time, you were president of the New York Federal Reserve. It's clear from those remarks that you and your colleagues failed to see the growing and nearing financial danger. People like Mr. Robini were mocked as prophets of doom, warning of the danger. In fact, the Federal Reserve policy was a central component in helping form the housing bubble. I say that just to say it is difficult to predict the future. I'm not blaming you for missing that. Most people missed it. But we have to understand there are dangers there. History will judge our conversation today. Do you believe the President's budget provides a solution to our fiscal problems? Do you believe that $11.2 trillion in new federal debt, annual interest payments approaching $1 trillion a year, and a budget where health care spending grows twice as fast as our economy is a sustainable future? We don't know the day, the time, the hour when a debt crisis might erupt. We've been wrong before. We can't predict what event might set that in motion. But we do know that we are on a dangerous course. The longer we wait to change that course, the graver the danger becomes. The debt cloud over our economy, I believe, is already depressing growth. We haven't bounced back as much as we'd like. I think the cloud of debt is a factor in keeping that growth bounce back so low. This nation needs a more optimistic future, one with less debt, leaner government, and a thriving private sector that provides good, high-paying jobs for everyday Americans. I know we can get there, but there is a definite lack of confidence in the marketplace today. It cannot be altered by fine speeches. That day is past if it ever existed. A definite course change founded on sound, mature action. Action is required. Sadly, this budget says we're not going to get it. I hope we're on a recovery today, and that the millions of Americans out of work will soon find jobs, and I hope we're about to see a rebound that can continue. But experts have told us that the largest threat to our economic and national security is our debt, and that's something we're responsible for. The government is responsible for the government's debt. This administration had, in its last year of its term, an opportunity to put forward a budget plan that would have changed the debt course of our country. Yes, it would have required some belt tightening, some pain, but nothing this nation couldn't handle. The American people are ready to stand together to make the tough choices. Instead of leading, our president has attacked even those who had the integrity and courage to make realistic proposals that would actually work. So I look forward to your testimony today, Mr. Geithner, and respect your efforts on behalf of our country.